Today on Rise Up, we start with a key event at the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, part of the UK Forum on Freedom of Religion or Belief. It gathered government officials, diplomats, and faith groups to discuss the UK's international approach to promoting religious freedom. Next, we'll dive into community posts shared on the Riser's official YouTube channel. And finally, the Riser delves into why God dedicated entire chapters of the Quran to ants and bees. What hidden wisdom do these tiny creatures hold about the future of humanity? Uncovering the signs encoded in nature, how ants, bees, and even cells point to the next step in our evolution. This is Rise Up.
Good morning. Welcome to Rise Up. I'm Alia Halal.
Welcome to Rise Up. Good morning. I'm Irfan Alamgir.
That was a long weekend.
Yes, we had a weekend.
We usually don't do that. We usually do show up on Sundays, don't we? But
we do.
This Sunday we couldn't do that. We are here though. We're back with a lot to talk about.
Enthused and energized and solar powered.
Yeah, very solar powered. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
What is happening with the weather?
Yes, well, the children have these beautiful tans going on, and it's
It is nice though to have the warm weather here.
You need it every now and then.
We miss it in the winter, so it's kind of our blessings.
Yeah, you gotta make the most of it while it's here, right?
Yeah,
the
exactly.
UK weather especially.
Especially up here. So let's jump into what we're going to discuss today. And I think we will start with what we do most shows, which is the community posts. And that is because of the works of the Ansar around the world and the fact that you guys are extremely dedicated when it comes to spreading the call, which we highly appreciate, and we think that it has to be highlighted. It's a great endeavor, and it's the reason why we are spreading. It's the reason why there is so much information out there about us, and there should be. There is a discussion going on now. There's a conversation taking place about the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, about the rise of Abdullah Hashim Abu Sadiq, and this is a very critical conversation. We really believe that going forward, this is the way that things can change for the better. Because we're not a people that impose our beliefs upon others. We're a people that believe that we can create an alternative for the world and allow others their freedoms as well. And I think that's exactly the right recipe, isn't it, for a world full of diversity and different schools of thought.
Yeah, I think the comment section we can glean a lot of the public opinion and reaction to the material that we present and the topics that we talk about. I think people are making some very interesting comments, and it's something that Abu Sadiq, I know himself, reads on his YouTube page and takes seriously and then responds to. You can see how the response is tailored to a lot of the comments because they bring up to the surface different kind of cultural distinctions and understandings, and people who are not so familiar with the Islamic religion, for example, in South America, they will make comments and from their perceptual lens compared to people who live in North America, Europe and Africa, and every country has its own background and understanding, and to respond to the people's requests, concerns, questions, queries is what the comment section really allows to happen. And if Abu Sadiq is doing it, then we certainly should be following suit. And I think you're particularly good at reading the comments, and our Myra at the background when she puts everything together. I think the comments do reflect public opinion, and it's very important to have your finger on the pulse so we can respond appropriately. And we really do appreciate every single comment because it gives us the opportunity to make things more clear for our audience.
A lot of people have actually very good questions, and they represent large chunks of the society that have the same question, or people are discussing various topics and then they don't actually understand what it is that we meant, and then when they bring it up in the comment, we get a chance to kind of elaborate on that, or we get positive comments, which are very refreshing, because we do believe that what we're talking about is very reasonable, and we think that there are reasonable people out there who will agree with us and say, hey, that is a good idea. Let's align on humanity first and not have wars, not have fighting, not have violence, not have terrorism. Let's actually just be a good human family together that don't necessarily have the same ideas or believe in the same things, but at the same time, they're able to live together in peace and prosperity. And that's the entirety of our religion, isn't it? Just understanding that basis and moving forward under the leadership of Abu Sadiq in that direction. it's really hard to find someone who can see that as unreasonable. And usually people don't have a very good, they never really have a very good argument against humanity first. But that's what we're preaching here on Rise Up, and that's what the point of our show is. And that's why we do this.
Yeah, and some of my favorite comments are usually comments where there is that gap in understanding, or the person has actually done some reading or research from the background that they come from, be it Sunni Islam, be it Catholicism, be it Methodist, Christian, whatever their background is, they certainly raise some very interesting questions, and they want to understand where we're coming from, what our origin is, and how we're connected. And although that may not come across in the way that they ask their question or give their comment, there is that person who has some understanding about religion, and they say, well, why do you guys believe this when this is clearly written in the Bible? Those are the best comments, because they give us that best chance to make our view and our stance clear.
Exactly, because now it's about...
Because it's not just like somebody saying, you guys are beanie-wearing cult who want to execute children. Just nonsense that's pulled out of the ether.
No substance in there.
Yeah.
Because it's
you
not
can't do anything.
We are wearing beanies, but the rest of it's not true. But
just attacks for the sake of somebody's appearance, which is, of course, is xenophobic and racist. But minus that, I really do enjoy the comments that have a desire to learn something or to build an understanding about where we're coming from.
Exactly, because it's based on the material we have, it's based on scripture, it's based on having a religious dialogue on what could be the interpretation of something that we find in religion anyway. And a lot of questions are there. There are a lot of mainstream religious questions that have never been answered. And we find Abu Sadiq, from him his peace, answering them in his lectures. And that's what's so fascinating to see and to hear. So we do like to have those conversations, and we like to see fascination in the audience when they realize, hey, there's an answer to this that I haven't heard before, and I actually think it makes a lot of sense. So we do enjoy having those kinds of conversations.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So shall we jump into our community posts?
Yep.
Let's go ahead. Let's start. Andorra. I think Andorra has been featuring quite often.
Andorra's a beautiful place. You know, it's given Croatia a run for its money in terms of the scenic beauty, I have to say.
It is pretty cool, and we've been mentioning it quite often on Rise Up, I noticed recently, which means the Ansar there are getting super active in spreading the call.
Small country, small population, but very active members of the religion.
Passionate members.
Yes. Can you imagine the whole of Andorra becomes Ansari?
How beautiful would that be? Then we'd all just
100,000 or less.
And it's such a beautiful place.
Austria now.
Australia.
Oh, Australia. My bad. See, this is the thing. They don't give us a chance to... It's breakneck speed. It's like you're in Andorra, then you're in Australia.
You, on your feet,
you could have gone to Austria, but they chose Australia just to throw us off, Alia. This is all a conspiracy.
Our mental skills are being tested here. Australia. Canada. Toronto, Canada.
It would be nice to know where in Australia, because it is the vast continent the size of Europe, isn't it?
That is
so I would love to know if our influence is... I would imagine it's much greater in the eastern side, where you've got Melbourne and Sydney.
We definitely have Ansar in Sydney and Melbourne.
Yes.
So it could be one of those two.
Versus Western Australia, where you've got Perth, where you've got other
Haven't heard of anyone
cities.
in Perth yet.
Yes.
Toronto, Canada. Lots of nice, beautiful flyers. In English, but also in another language. I didn't catch what it was. In the libraries. That's an interesting thing. People are actually going to the oh, there we are. We're back.
Yeah, go back to Australia so we can also criticize that one, please. Because it's like saying Europe.
It's true. Very good point. Very good point.
That's all good. It's all good. Okay. Did you see what you wanted to see there?
Yeah, I was just checking what other languages were being said.
Because the national languages in Canada are French and English, as far as I'm aware.
But that wasn't French. I'm so sure that looked like Spanish.
There you go.
What is that language?
Clawed it back again.
Can you see that? What is that?
Ah, yes. Adios.
Isn't that Spanish?
Yeah.
Or am I losing my memories?
I think you're probably right there.
That's very interesting. Maybe they're in an area where there are... yes.
Enlighten us, people from Canada.
It's probably because they're going to an area where there are some people who speak Spanish.
Spanish-speaking communities, yes. Cool, that's good.
El Salvador.
That's crazy.
Time has come for a new pope. Amazing.
Can you imagine El Salvador?
El Salvador. See, this is the thing. The prophecy says that when the Mahdi rises, people from every nation will see him, recognize him, take his name, spread the word of his coming. And also, what's so fascinating is that it will not just be believers. The narration clearly says he will be mentioned on the tongues of the believers and those who don't believe in him by name and by title. And that's exactly what we're seeing, and it's absolutely huge. We've actually asked a lot of these. So we do have different kinds of people that approach us. And unfortunately, there are those who are kind of on the side of being fundamentalists, who don't like progress, who want to stick to a very extremist, radical way of thinking about life and religion and God. And a lot of these people who see themselves as Muslim and believe they're following Islam, but they're not, they approach us and they attack us, of course, for being who we are.
Yep.
And I have asked some of them sometimes, I've said, you know, we have believers in different countries, and the Arabs who you claim to be those who will support Imam Mahdi are attacking the Mahdi for being tolerant, for being loving, for being peace-loving, right? What's the answer to that? And they don't have one. They don't seem to understand that the Mahdi will have supporters, whether the world likes it or not, from everywhere. And it's happening. It's incredible.
It surely is.
Look at that. There's a picture there that someone made of Jesus Christ on the cross, and Abu Sadiq is there. You know, like you cannot just eradicate his face or his name.
To be honest, it's the first time I'm seeing El Salvador, so this is great breaking news.
Huh? Yeah, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A very Christian country. It's a Catholic country in South America, and they are...
That's a beautiful picture as well. Is that actually Simon of Cyrene helping him carry the cross?
I think you've picked that up. Yeah, that's it, Simon of Cyrene.
This is a very symbolic picture, I have to say. Wow.
Okay, let's see.
Back home, England.
What is that, like a tube? Like that's the underground, is it? Okay.
Yeah, this is one of those places you go in to get those passport pictures taken.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we should be using as well. Good. Innovation. That's it.
That's it. That's all, folks.
That's it. We ended up back where we began. United Kingdom. England.
So poetic.
Yes.
But yeah, it's incredible. I think it's so... This in and of itself is such a miracle that people have to really think about. The fact that there are people in El Salvador saying, I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. I bear witness that Ali and the Imams from his sons are the proofs of Allah. There are people who have grown up Catholic or Protestant or atheist, and they are people who have grown up Sikh or Hindu who are pledging allegiance to God and recognizing Muhammad and the family of Muhammad as vicegerents of God. And this is no small thing. This is absolutely huge. There's something happening here, like there's something very living and very real about this religion and this call. Why? Because it's not something that excludes and isolates. And those who have realized that and who are looking for connection and who are looking for peace and looking for a unified world, those individuals are embracing this and realizing we're actually all on the same team. And anyone who tries to separate us based on ideology, based on race, based on where we come from, those people are the enemy. The enemy is not someone who has a different school of thought. It's not someone who has a different background. It's actually those who try to divide us. And it always has been that way, because there are certain entities and certain powers that actually benefit a lot from the fact that we get divided, that benefit from the fact that we fight, that benefit from the fact that we have issues within one another. And they insist that we create that division and we keep it that way. There are very strong voices in Eastern countries, in the Middle East and in Asia, unfortunately, that are very pro-division. And they insist on dividing. They even see it as a religious duty to push people aside into different categories. But it happens in the West as well. And religion is used as the excuse a lot, isn't it? Yeah. Religion seeps into culture, and people think that it's natural to divide yourself and be a separate entity to somebody else or another people. And this is actually unnatural. What's natural is to embrace what's within us, which is the soul that wants to be with its family and love other human beings and be happy and take care of one another. That's the natural way. That's been eradicated. That's been basically, I think people mock it even. They think it's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it takes a certain willingness to reach out and clasp somebody's hand in order to bridge an understanding.
Exactly.
Like in El Salvador, that very poignant picture of Simon of Cyrene carrying the cross for Jesus. Well, that was written about by Abu Sadiq in The Goal of the Wise, and it was a way to explain some incident that is unanimously accepted to have happened according to the canonical Gospels, in which a person suddenly appears out of the blue who, well, according to the Bibles anyway, it says that this person comes and carries the cross when Jesus could no longer bear to carry it because of the scourging that he had to endure. And this individual was called Simon of Cyrene. And Abu Sadiq takes that and expands upon it and connects it with the Gnostic Gospels found in the Nag Hammadi library. And he states actually this person was that individual from whom the soul of Jesus Christ had switched. There was a transmigration, and it explains now why the Islamic narrative on it also makes sense, which is that it was not Jesus himself who was crucified, but a lookalike. Actually, it was the body of Christ, but with the soul of Simon of Cyrene.
Incredible.
That sacrifice that came in order to be crucified and fulfill that divine mission that God had always intended. This is something that is beautiful, and for somebody to come from El Salvador, deeply rooted in Catholic faith in Jesus and his sacrifice being the ultimate glory and salvation of mankind, and then be willing to accept the narrative that says, well, this is what happened, and here is the proof, and here is the information for you, to accept that, and then to put Abu Sadiq up front in that kind of narrative, it takes a great person, and a person who wants to bridge the divides and this fragmented view of looking at the other as your enemy and not somebody to sort of build an understanding with. And you've got 2 billion Muslims, 2 billion Christians, and this is that bridge that Abu Sadiq provided, that it's a continuation of the same message from the same God, and it's something that connects us rather than divide us.
It does. It really does. I'm very amazed when people try to perceive that we are in any shape or form a threat to their existence. We're actually a people that want to allow the world to exist. We want to enable people to have freedom, to have their rights given to them. We want to embrace differences. We don't want to separate based on differences. We want to allow the differences to exist and enable people to think the way they want to think, because that's the point of religion. It's to discover God in your way. We truly, truly believe that division is wrong when it's imposed and when it's used as a way to keep good people away from each other. Because when good people are divided, right, they're weak. They're not able to do much. And today's episode is actually going to center very much around connection and the fact that we are one entity and we are connected. And embracing that connection is going to change the world for so much better if you can just understand it. There was this Q&A session that Abu Sadiq held in the Basilica that we discussed on Rise Up as well recently. And in it, there was someone who had asked a very hostile question. And I really love it that Abu Sadiq doesn't say no to any kind of question, even if they come across very rude or very insolent or aggressive. He will have us read them out to him and he will answer them. And this individual was essentially attacking the religion in the question and saying, you guys don't pray, you guys don't wear hijab, you guys are having the Star of David, you guys are not Muslim. So he was very, hostile in the question, unfortunately. And Abu Sadiq still listened and he answered. And I remember after he explained certain aspects of religion, he says this thing, it comes out of him. You can see the way it comes from him. It's coming from a deep place of pain, you can tell. When he says, why do people want to divide everyone all the time? Why do they want to separate themselves from each other? And you can tell it really was bothering him, because this individual was saying, the Star of David is not our star. And you guys are bad because you have the Star of David. And Abu Sadiq was saying that David is the prophet of the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. So why are you afraid of this star? Simply because of these ideas that exist in the modern day world of politics that have nothing to do with the prophets and messengers. So it was an interesting thing to see him just come out with that. I remember he had answered the question, but then suddenly he said, no, I'm not done yet. I have to explain that the way that you thought about it was wrong. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, the Star of David is a symbol of unity for sure.
Exactly.
I mean, this is one of the things that connects us all, and it's the symbol of the seventh covenant. So there must be some importance to the star, and if Muslims are rejecting it purely on the basis that it is a Jewish symbol, then they are essentially severing their legacy with God, that connection with God that goes back. If they say that Prophet David and Solomon, who also wore the star, the six-pointed star on his ring, if they reject David and Solomon, then they've rejected every prophet going back to Adam, and this includes the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family, who often likened themselves to some of the Israelite prophets and the message that they brought. So yes, this is a very interesting thing that is present, that they say, well, this is your symbol, this is our symbol, this is our prophet, this is your prophet, stay in your lane, we'll stay in our lane, and let's go to war in about 50 years from now.
Weird. Why?
Yeah.
Abu Sadiq was so hurt. You could see the hurt in him when he stood on the mimbar recently in that sermon he delivered, and he said, fighting between Muslims and Christians is forbidden. They should not be fighting. They are brothers. And it was such a painful sermon. I remember I myself I felt my heart breaking while listening to him, because if we could just see that, you know, like, who is benefiting from the fighting? Who benefits from pointing fingers and saying, you're bad, you're wrong, I don't like you anymore? Who benefits from that? It's not the poor. It's not the working class. It's not the people who are trying to get bread on the table. It's not the parents who want to make sure that Christmas this year is special for their children. None of these people are benefiting from this war. The only people that benefit from it are the ultra-rich, and this is a fact. And we have said this before, and it's a very startling statement. I don't think people like to hear it. It makes them uncomfortable, but isn't it true? Isn't it the fact that there are these entities out there that are very much benefiting from fighting and from wars, while most of the world is not? And I guess we can jump into the hive mind episode that Abu Sadiq did recently that we wanted to discuss today.
Yeah.
We've broken it into segments. We're going to be airing the different segments and discussing what it is that he said. So should we go ahead and start?
Yeah, in the name of unity, let's begin.
Let's begin.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My dear sister and companion Bayda.
Alaikum salam, Abu Sadiq.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
God bless you. So tell us a little bit about yourself first off.
Yeah, I'm Bayda. I'm 40 years old. Since 7 months I'm in your community, believing in you or knowing you since 2008, since the arrivals times. So yeah, I had a long proving and long sessions to find you back. And finally find you back, and I'm here. To my professions, I was working at least for the military, and yeah.
So you are originally Turkish. Your parents are Turkish. You're German by citizenship.
Yes.
Yeah, and you grew up in Germany.
Yes, I was born there. Yeah.
And you were born in Germany.
Yeah.
And you worked for NATO.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So what were you doing at NATO?
I was the Secretary of a General.
Okay. Yeah. So you're the Secretary of a General in NATO in Germany. And then what made you decide that you were going to leave that job over there and come join the community?
I always wanted to serve the community. So I was searching for jobs like where I can do it most. And yeah, in Germany, it was for me like, is it the police or a hospital or a military? So I decided for myself it was the military. So I went there. It was a good decision. I learned a lot in these years, and finally I changed the military, or I would say I changed the army and changed the general to the spiritual one.
That's incredible. I remember when you first joined the community, we had that discussion, and I asked you the same question, and you said, you know, I was working for one general. I said, how hard was it to make this decision to up and leave your life in Germany and to insist on coming here to be with us? And you said it was very easy, actually. You said, I just decided to stop working for one general and I started working for another.
Yes.
So God bless you, Bayda. Thank you so much for those words. What is is there anything that you would like to share regarding NATO in general, or your experiences there, or your views on the institution?
Generally, I can say it's like, it's always, what are you working for? The military or the soldiers itself are like really gold. Also now when I'm thinking about them, it's like really humans or men and women with golden hearts. So, but the purpose is a different one. So, and I don't know if the purpose, what they are working for, is the right one. So I decided for myself it is not. And came here.
That's an interesting idea, and it kind of parallels itself in the teachings of Imam Ahmed al-Hassan alayhi salam. This idea that when you become a part of an institution or a part of a government or part of a political party or part of a body in general, that you become responsible for the actions of that party or that body. And that was the idea behind the book or the teachings that were the basis for the book, The Supremacy of God and Not the Supremacy of the People, where Imam Ahmed al-Hassan alayhi salam, obviously drawing on the narrations from the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and the words of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa when he said, for example, whoever behaves like a particular people, he is from those people, and that if a person, saw a wrongdoing that was committed, for example, in the East, and somebody was pleased with it in the West, that person would bear basically the same responsibility as the person who committed that action. And obviously, Imam Ahmed al-Hassan alayhi salam, the Holy Quran also says that whoever takes them as a guardian, then he is from them, referring to this kind of notion that if you are a part of a body, if you seek protection from that body, if you participate in the lifestyle of that body or in pursuing the goals of that body, then you are a part of it. And it makes an individual want to reflect extra carefully, as you stated, on what body am I becoming a part of, because there are many narrations that state basically that whoever dies and doesn't know the Imam of his time has died the death of ignorance, and that every person, when they die, that they will be resurrected with their Imam. And obviously we spoke in great detail about other narrations in which there were these individuals that were initially with Imam Ali alayhi salam, but then they kind of like left Imam Ali, and then they were from the Khawarij, and they broke away from Imam Ali, and they were mocking Imam Ali, and then they ended up pledging allegiance to a lizard, and Imam Ali said that on the Day of Judgment they would be resurrected with that lizard as their Imam. And so this notion or this concept that whoever dies and doesn't have an Imam, that he's lost, and whoever does have an Imam, whether it's a true Imam or a false Imam, that on the Day of Judgment you're kind of resurrected as a part of that. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also emphasized this notion of how the believers or his followers are part of a greater body. He said that that the ummah is one body, and he said that his ummah would be resurrected with him on the Day of Judgment. That he would take pride in showing off his ummah because it would be the greatest of all ummahs in terms of numbers on the Day of Judgment. And so we see that the followers of Moses, they're resurrected with him. The followers of Muhammad are resurrected with him. The followers of Jesus are resurrected with him. I mean, like every people's in their time, that, the people that were with Muhammad in his time. And obviously for our time, we believe that the individuals that die today, they'll be resurrected with their Imam. So if their Imam is Ahmed al-Hassan, they would be with Ahmed al-Hassan, and as such. And so, I just find that really interesting because here we have a real life example of a very pure and decent woman who grew up kind of with this multicultural background. She has these parents that come from Turkey. There is this Islamic kind of background. Obviously, everybody knows that how Turkey is associated with the Ottoman Empire and with Islam and a lot of Islamic traditions that came out of that region. But in the same token, you were born and raised in Germany, and Germany's in the heart of the West. Germany today is considered, really, even though they don't outright say it, but Germany is the most successful, European country economically. They seem to be the default kind of leaders of the European Union, really. They were at the center of World War I and at the center of World War II. So they have this kind of natural inclination for the pursuit of power and resources. And you came to a point in your life where you felt conflicted between being a part and having your identity cornered off into being a part of that German European society, that NATO infrastructure, because obviously you love Germany and you love the people there, and you wanted to serve them. So you thought, okay, well, let me take advantage of this. But then you found yourself serving a general who's actually serving an institution, a country, and then you begin to wonder, when I die on the day of resurrection, is that going to be my imam? Is that general going to be my imam? What's going to happen?
So that is Sister Bayda.
Sister Bayda.
I'm so happy that Abu Sadiq gave a bit of context to who she is in the episode. And we were just saying, we have to get Bayda on Rise Up.
Yeah, she has a fascinating background and a
awesome.
story.
What an incredible lady. And we really need to, the world deserves to know who Bayda is.
Yes, and we haven't had her on. It was interesting, wasn't it? She's been she came to the community and she had a certain background and she just kind of fit in straight away.
She felt like she was always meant to be here, like we always knew her. She's such an incredible mother, an incredible person, incredible sister. We should get her on. And I think that Abu Sadiq did a great job, of course, in explaining a bit of her background, but there was a reason why he opened it up that way, isn't there?
No, I'm really happy that he did. And I was saying to Alia that I'm really glad that they included that introduction, because oftentimes when we make segments, it's getting to the heart of the matter, getting to the crux of the topic. But this is the crux of the topic, because this is an individual who is from an interesting background, Turkish background, but grew up, born and raised in Germany. And she was part and a member of this organization. She was part working within the German military for a period of time. And then Abu Sadiq asks her, that if you are part of this this beehive, I guess, or an organization that you work in, then you become a member of its body, if you will, with a general at the top. And then if you are part of this body, then are you somehow accountable and linked to the person calling the shots at the top?
Exactly.
Even if you don't agree with them, even if you are kind of resistant to some of their stances, but because you are part of that hive, you represent its beliefs and ideology. And therefore, you are accountable for the outcomes and the decisions made by this hierarchy that you are a member of. So it was a very interesting beginning to that particular episode, and I think it lays the ground perfectly for what is to come.
Exactly. Are we enabling the greater body or entity that we represent? Are we supporting it and allowing it to make the decisions it makes and to implement those decisions as well? And I think that's exactly what Abu Sadiq is giving this kind of food for thought to the audience and making them think to themselves, who am I actually? Who am I representing? Who am I enabling? Who am I supporting? It is a very, very good question. Let's go on to the next segment and see how it continues.
And then what happened?
Then what happened? Yeah, actually, I find the community and had an alternative to that what I known, and had the choice to serve there or do that what my heart wants. So I changed and came here. And even I can also additional say, like, okay, when the general where I'm serving is also serving another general in another institution. So and if we are seeing it like in the future and wars are coming, maybe, I don't want this blood in my hands.
Exactly.
So it's like, yeah.
That's exactly the reason why also I had or part of the reason why I had initially left actually the United States, and the reason why I had never voted in my entire life, even though I was a U.S. citizen by birth, and I have the inherent right over there constitutionally to participate in elections once I'm of age. I never participated in any election. I never voted for anybody, not on a state level, not on in the federal or general elections for the presidency of the United States. I never participated in any, and the reason for that was precisely what you just mentioned, is that I felt like through the electing of an individual, I'm not just endorsing them, but I'm taking upon myself the responsibility for all of the actions that they are committing, because basically they are committing these actions, they're implementing these policies by virtue of the power that is invested in them by the people that elected them or that put them in that position in order to represent them. And I thought that that was a very dangerous ordeal. But you know what this whole conversation has me reminded of? It reminds me a little bit about biology and how biology is reflected. The inner is reflected in the outer, the lesser is reflected in the greater, and vice versa. The small is reflected in the large. It reminds me of biology and how the origin of life started off, Beidal, with these single cellular organisms, just these single itty bitty teeny cells. I mean, our bodies are made up of tens of billions of cells, but life didn't originate like that. It originated with just these little cells that were kind of moving around, and they would look for food. They would seek shelter. They would travel. They would also consume one another. They would want to, and they would basically be seeking energy. And at some point in life, something phenomenal happened, and that is basically that these single cellular organisms decided that if they banded together, they could form a new organism, a multicellular organism, an organism that was made up of many cells that cooperated with one another. And these multicellular organisms were more successful than the single cellular ones. They had more access to energy than the single cellular ones did. They had less difficulty finding food. They were more successful in the evasion of being consumed by other organisms because they were much larger now, and thus they were more powerful. And so the evolution of life happened as such, whereby cells decided that they would form a community together in order that they may be more successful and that they would mutually benefit one another. They decided that, and they proved that the next step in the evolution of life is not to live by yourself, but to live communally, to live together. And once they lived together, they became an ummah, or they became one body, so to speak. And there are a lot of conversations between philosophers and biologists that kind of have pondered. It's a deep philosophical kind of biological question, where some have contemplated over this notion or this idea of whether or not the multicellular organism now that was made up of single cells, whether or not it is now one organism, one creature, or it is many different independent creatures that are behaving now together as one collective creature. All right, and so that's a very interesting notion, and I think it parallels itself in religion to a great extent. And I'm gonna tell you why, besides the obvious reasons, and that is because we are made up of tens of billions of cells. And so these organisms continued to evolve. They went from being one to clusters of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and then they went into the hundreds and thousands, and then they became more complex entities. And now all forms of life that are on Earth, whether they're animals or plants or whatever it may be, they all came into being in that same method by these clusters of cells deciding that they would work together. And then what's completely astonishing is that these cells decided amongst themselves, they would communicate, and they decided to divide labor. They would specialize in particular jobs. Some cells became red blood cells that would carry oxygen. That would be their job. They would say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Other cells became nerve cells, and they would carry signals. And then you had skin cells, and you would have muscle cells, and you would have all kinds of different cells that specialized in different duties, and they cooperated in a coherent manner within this ecosystem that is now this new biological entity. And as a result of this flourishing, coherent community, right, this ummah of cells that decided that they were going to all sacrifice their own individuality, and instead of each and every one of them doing everything for itself, they would just do their own parts in order that the whole community may flourish, became the way to move forward.
That's so fascinating.
Yes, it is. And Abu Sadiq is obviously talking about the ability to look beyond the self, beyond the individual's needs, and looking at the needs of the group, that hive mind. And we know that in the Quran we have the surah that's been revealed on the ant and the bee, two creatures who live on planet Earth, that we can clearly see that they have built this success through their bonding around a queen or an imam-like figure, where they follow and take this individual bee or ant's lead in terms of the way that they operate. Every person in the colony, every bee in the colony, every ant in the colony knows its precise role and function and does it to the best of its ability. And this is what creates a thriving community in the ant and bee world. And Imam Ali alayhi salam very famously has the title Prince of the Bees for this reason. And we are supposed to have this and more in relation to God when we have an Imam living among us, to follow his instruction and command from the top down. And if everybody does what they're supposed to do, what their job is, then this is how you build this successful, thriving community of believers.
It is an interesting perspective that people don't necessarily think about often or see as a priority. And I think that they kind of don't see it as part of religion. It's not understood to be the way to live religiously. And people think that if they do their own thing and they're being religious, or they have their rituals, or they read their Bible, or they go to church, or they go to Eid prayer, or whatever it is that they think they're meant to do, as long as they're adhering to those rules and laws and regulation and are part of the culture, they'll be fine, and God will be pleased with them, and everything will be okay. And to an extent, that's true. People should live good lives, and God will be pleased with them. That's a fact. But the new idea, the better way would be, how do we enable each other? How do we, the key I think is in the word selfish. If you think of the word selfish, we just say it, it's a part of our vocabulary. But if you break the word down, it's basically saying selfish. You're being too into yourself. You're not being selfless. You're not letting go of your own self. And this is a very difficult step when it comes to enlightenment, and when it comes to, as the episode kind of indicates, the next step in human evolution. It's easy to do the individual rituals. That's easy. What's very difficult is to sacrifice for another. What's very difficult is to connect with another person and relinquish your own needs or desires. That's what's not easy. And I think that it is also even a little bit intimidating. Perhaps there's this idea that when people get together and they're doing their own thing, in fact, absolutely, it's true. Even Professor Holly Folk, when she came, this was part of the conversation. We were talking about new religious movements, communes. She has studied different communes, and she was saying quite clearly that people don't necessarily embrace the idea of communes, even though there's nothing wrong with it. It's a beautiful thing to live together, and it's wholesome. Yet when people perceive these communes and new religious movements, they don't see them as, okay, a group of like-minded people working together. They immediately suspect them of something wrong or evil.
Yeah, no, it's something I wanted to highlight about the whole phenomenon of living in this kind of hive mind mentality, which is that you lose that sense of individuality. Actually, you flourish to your utmost when the conditions are right.
Exactly.
When the ground is fertile, that is when you're going to produce the most fruit. And if there is a leader, and who could argue with the statement that the success of an organization really does depend on the leader, the person who is setting the tone, the person who is ensuring that people are doing their jobs as they should be in any organization at any level. And this is why they're remunerated, even in the world, in the organization, the person who is in charge. And that person is ultimately also responsible for the success and failure of an organization. So they hold that brunt of responsibility. Now imagine if they didn't have the requisite skill set to be able to put people in their correct places so that they can do their job and lead to the success of that community or organization. It would be a catastrophe. And this is why, when there is something that goes wrong, the first head to roll in an organization, when we read about it in the papers, is the CEO or the president or director of that organization. It is something that we are familiar with in the worldly terms. But now put into that kind of space a man who is appointed by God, who therefore does have all of the requirements of a successful leader who can create that hive mind, that thriving community, and then he is not supported adequately, then it is the worker bees, the other members of that organizational community that are also responsible. What we must do is take our instruction, do our jobs to the best of our ability under the stewardship and guardianship of the one God has sent in every time. And in one time, that was the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. And through the support that he had, he was able to survive this constant onslaughts and attacks that his community faced. They were almost driven to extinction, but he had this group of people around him, these self-sacrificing bees who could see his vision of the future, that divine just state he wanted to establish, and they were willing to put everything on the line to make sure that this comes to pass. And it did for a period of time, until the divinely appointed leader was betrayed by the hands of these infiltrators, these hornets that wanted to end the success of the colony. We have to recognize the leader that is within our midst at this time and give him everything that we have, because when he is in charge, the conditions are created for us as individuals and as a community and as a society and a global human family to all of us reach our full potential and success. This fear that is implanted into our hearts that we will lose our sense of freedom and individuality, I think this puts a lot of people off this hive mind.
This is exactly it. It's a fear, right, of losing freedom, of losing individuality, and that's such a fallacy. It is such a farce, an illusion. There's no such thing as losing your freedom if you give freedom to other people, if you enable other human beings, if you take care of your neighbors, if you take care of your community, if you take care of other human beings, God takes care of you, and He takes care of you through other human beings. And it's such a beautiful concept. It is such a prosperous idea. It cannot go wrong. If you have, as you said, Dr. Irfan, the right leader, who actually is selfless, who is actually emulating exactly what it is that a leader should be doing for his people and how he should work for them, etc. And a good leader sees himself as a servant of the people. if you've got that and you've got like-minded good people who want to take care of one another, you cannot go wrong. It's always going to be good. And that's what Abu Sadiq is basically saying here. The whole thing with the beehive and the bees that get together and they work well together, it's a beautiful thing. What do bees produce? They produce honey, right? Mm-hmm. They give to society. They're actually benefiting whoever it is that comes into contact with that hive, because now you get something good out of it. And this is what a godly, divine community is like. It benefits the people wherever it goes. What's so interesting is that, and I think Abu Sadiq goes into that further in the episode, the idea of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, who was known as the Prince of the Bees, and he has this fascinating narration where he says, "Be among men like a bee among birds." So a true believer is meant to be like the bees that are surrounded by these birds who are everyone else, who are just doing their own thing. But the bee, which is the believer in this analogy, is focused on how do I take care of my people, and what am I supposed to do, and what is my role with them. So it is such an interesting concept, and Abu Sadiq is saying it's part of religion, and really is, by the way. If you go into Christianity, even the book of Acts talks about how the disciples were living. And it's quite detailed. It doesn't just say, yeah, they were happy together, they lived together. It explains how their finance system worked. It explains how they ate together. It explains their lifestyle. They truly lived together as a believing community, and it was part of their faith. It was part of their creed to live that way. That if one of them, if someone were to join them, this was their way. That, okay, we're going to take care of you, we're going to put things together, and we're going to make this work together. So it is a part of being a believer in God.
Yes, absolutely is. And I really hope that people take it for what it is, which is that it's not designed to take away your personal freedom or your desire to. This is the illusion that's being fed to you. This is the false narrative that if you submit yourself to a divinely appointed caliph, God's true representative in the creation, then you will lose certainly something to do with your own individual freedoms and personal rights. But actually, this is the whole scheme of the devil, to make you believe this, because the only way that you will have freedom to evolve to the full capability of your soul is if you are a part of this hive, because then you are protected and defended. You do your thing, your job that has been assigned to you, and other people are doing their jobs, and they are meeting your needs and you're meeting their needs. And this creates that protection, that safety blanket that then allows you to bear fruit as you should, produce that honey and that nectar that then is goodness for one and all around you. This is something we have to bear in mind. This your individuality, your personal freedom. Don't let the devil mislead you by saying that this is something that you will lose. Actually, this is something that is only possible to attain through submission to God and a caliph of God that is the sculptor of the souls. This is something that we have to recognize, and I think this is a key distinction to make if we're going to move forward on a united front.
Yes, and you said that the devil misleads and makes people feel like their freedoms are taken away. And I think that he probably uses certain entities to create that fear within people. And those particular entities are also benefiting from the division of mankind. So when they see that you're connected and you're united, somehow there are those out there who really don't like that, and they want to come and they want to take a big axe and start chopping up the infrastructure of unity that you've created. And it's so easy to see who benefits from division, and it's so easy to see, why they're threatened by it. It's because when enough bees get together in a hive, it's a very strong hive. The more the bees, the better the hive, isn't it?
Right, exactly. I find it very disturbing and also in a strange way
sinister, isn't it?
Funny when I see these people with the freedom shirts on and they're calling for basically anarchy. They're saying freedom means to live by yourself as you want, do what you want. Law of the jungle. And what happens? That freedom is basically slavery to the system, because there is a system at the heart of it that runs things, and those people in positions of power, they know this, so they want to propagate a different view of what freedom is, and their definition, like you said, is a very sinister definition of freedom, because it is the ultimate slavery, because it is based on a worldview of divisiveness. Divisions means weakness. Weakness means you are conquered. When you're conquered, you are slaves to the system. And this is something that we can only break with unification through the hive mind, where the Imam of the time is sitting on the throne and giving us instructions directly through the one and only source of all creation, which is God Almighty.
Exactly. Let's see how Abu Sadiq elaborates further on the point and see what he says.
And biologists were astonished, and they spoke about, okay, well, what is the next step of evolution after that? And they have spoken about, many of them have spoken about how the next step of evolution is what takes place in societies of independent organisms, right? Or seemingly independent organisms, such as the ants or the bees. The ants and the bees, they're not glued together like clusters of cells are, right? Where they're stuck together as one organism. They're seemingly independent organisms, but yet they behave as a superorganism. All of the ants of one colony or all of the bees of one hive, they behave as one entity, collectively all cooperating in the same way that cells do within one colony or one hive to achieve one purpose, and that is the success of the entire colony or the hive. And that is fascinating, especially when we look to the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad alayhi salam, and we see that the bee colonies or the beehives are led by a queen bee. The colony of ants is led by a queen ant. And we find that in the stories of the prophets and the messengers, and in the Quran specifically, we have two surahs. One of them is named after the ants and one of them is named after the bees. So obviously God wants us to pay attention to these two creatures. Obviously mankind and all of its might and glory, right, and its advancement, God wants to draw our attention towards these itty bitty little creatures that can teach us something. And then we find stories where, for example, the Prophet Solomon alayhi salam, in Jewish traditions and also in Muslim traditions, he is moving with his army, and all of a sudden he hears the voice of an ant, and he learns a profound lesson in wisdom from an ant. And so obviously we have, if the Prophet himself can learn from the ants, then we're required also to look and see and examine what's going on with the ants, because there's something that we need to learn. And then we find that the Prophet Muhammad calls Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Prince of the Believers, Ali ibn Abi Talib, he gives him a very interesting title. He calls him the Prince of the Bees. Amir al-Nahl is one of the very famous, and they know this very much so in Turkey and in Syria and these countries. One of the famous titles of Imam Ali alayhi salam is the Prince of the Bees. And Amir al-Mu'mineen and also the Ahl Bayt alayhi salam and the Prophet Muhammad said that their Shia are the likes of bees, right? And so there's this comparison that's drawn between the bees and the Shia, or the believers, the queen bee and the prince of the believers, Ali ibn Abi Talib, or the Imam of the time, and I guess the hive of the bees, or the community of the bees itself, with the larger ummah that the Prophet Muhammad had said that the ummah is one body. So if the ummah is one body, like the Prophet said, and if one part of the ummah is in pain or is suffering, then the whole body is suffering, then we find that this comparison is actually pretty accurate with the bees, because that's precisely what takes place within a beehive. If one part of the beehive is damaged, the entire suffer, because it is actually operating as a super organism, the entire hive, and they're not behaving independently. And each and every one of those bees is ready to sacrifice themselves for the rest of them. And I think that when we look and we compare each and every one of these bees to the individual cells that chose to band together to create a greater organism, we find that the bees are operating in the same exact way. These individual bees are choosing to bind themselves together within a hive and operate as a greater organism, and that success is in that. And if one of these bees decides to fly away from the hive, they don't survive much. They end up dying shortly afterwards. And I think that it is phenomenal because although science has not proven yet the existence of an imam cell or like a queen cell, we find that there's this glue that holds the cells together. And we find that in the hives and in the colonies of the ants, there's this leader, there's this imam, there's this female ant or female bee that acts as the glue that holds together the entire hive. And in the absence of the ant, the queen ant or the queen bee, what happens is that the colony or the hive, the members of the hive begin to become a little bit confused. If she passes away or she goes away, they become more aggressive. They might behave in an erratic manner. And I think that that is quite fascinating. I also think that it's fascinating that they all chose to give up their individuality for the sake of the greater good. Just like those soldiers that you said that their heart is of gold. And I believe that that's the case with most soldiers for most militaries around the world. Most of them are joining because of a sense of patriotism, and they want to serve their fellow man, and they want to fight for justice, and they want to do what is good. It's just that most of them are probably unaware or unconscious of, or haven't given much thought to, what is the entity that they are serving, and what is the responsibilities that will fall upon them. And you know what's also interesting, Bayda, is that in the hive, the beehive, if one of the bees decides to act independently after becoming a member of the hive that it's a part of, the bees, and there was some clips that they had posted as a part of, I think it was some sort of science documentary, where they showed like that what would happen in the case that a bee would go and instead of collecting nectar, it went and basically drank alcohol or wine, and it became drunk, for example. What would happen, or what would take place in this behavior that did not conform to the rest of the society? And they saw that the bee that would act independently, it would be confronted by other bees of the hive, and they would proceed to cut off its wings and rip apart its arms or its legs, and it would be discarded. It would be left to die. It would be eliminated and removed from the hive. And that exact behavior we find happening in multicellular organisms when one of the cells decides to stop doing its particular job that it was assigned to do and to behave independently. A cell that behaves abnormally and independently is what we call cancerous cells. And so that is just incredible.
That is very incredible.
Yeah.
It's the idea that if something is not working in a working system, if the machinery gets disrupted in some way, and he used the example here of the beehive again, that if there is a rogue bee that is causing disruption, they're no longer part of the hive. They're no longer welcome there. In fact, the hive itself does not welcome that particular bee and wants it out because it's not helping the hive as a whole. And the reason that he's bringing this up is because, in general, if there is a coherent or cohesive system of people or bodies that are working in some way, and they're like-minded, it works. But if you have someone, as you had said earlier, Dr. Irfan, these individuals who create anarchy in the society, who believe in breaking laws or breaking rules, and they see that as freedom, then it would be very problematic. And that's why certain measures are put into place to make sure that society is run by order and discipline.
Yeah, because you have to also remember this bee gets a lot of advantages as being part of the colony. The membership comes with a lot of pros, and those pros include things like a safe environment, food, shelter, protection against other predators, protection against other members of the same species that may have conflicting interests. So if you're taking all the advantages and then you decide to, become the architect of your own colony within a colony, the bees become very much like the immune system of the human being. And they see this individual bee who now wants to do its own thing. And Abu Sadiq mentioned that it was part of a very interesting documentary, and I really, really want to watch now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Documentaries on the beehive and the hive mind, because it is such an important part of religion in many, many ways. And Abu Sadiq is saying that what the bees do is they come together and they see this individual who is creating this anarchy and rebellion within the hive and disrupting the functions of the hive from running. They come and they clip off its wings as a way to, say to the bee, well, this is your last warning before something else happens. And this is something really, really important, because people say, well, this seems like an extreme action, but this is exactly what happens to a cancer cell. In a properly functioning immune system within the body, the immune system cells recognize this individual cell that is now multiplying and consuming the resources of the cell without giving anything back, without doing its job, and it will unleash hell and fury upon the cell, because if it does not, then this abnormal cell, this cancer cell, will proliferate very quickly, creating toxins within the body and leading to the death of the entire organism, the human body that it inhabits. So this is something that we can take from the human body and the cells that make up the human body, which is what the episode started with, to the bee colony in particular, where there's this very sophisticated hierarchical system which ensures that the best environment is provided, but then you have to be in sync with it. You cannot create anarchy and rebellion inside it, or it will be responded to as the immune system responds to a cancer cell.
And this is exactly also why part of our creed as a religion is that following the law of the land is very, very important. It's part of our religious belief. If you're living in a land where there's a certain law, you should not be breaking it, because you are benefiting from that land, and your presence should be a benefit to others. It should not be a source of discomfort. It should not be a source of inconvenience. Rather, it should be the opposite. It should be something that people benefit from. And that's something we truly do believe in and work by. So it really comes back to the same thing, doesn't it? It's about having a well-oiled machine that is functioning and benefiting the people. And this is what we're about. We think that being like the bees or being like the ants makes us a little bit better as people, rather than being these isolated individuals who are struggling to be happy in a world of people struggling to be happy. Human beings naturally are so much happier when they know each other, when they love each other, when they're together. It's just how it works. We are
part of a whole.
Way. We are part of a whole, and that was something else that Abu Sadiq mentioned in that segment. He talks about that the fact that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, says that the nation or the ummah, it's one body, and that means what? That means that. So this is the fascinating thing about being in a community. Yeah, and we've experienced it.
Yes,
you cannot have one member feeling sad or being hurt in some way and not be affected, because we are a body. And this is what the Prophet wanted, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wants the Muslim nation to understand that we're all one. And you cannot have, for example, the human body, right? And you've got the hand chopped off, or the leg is injured, and you just continue life as normal. It hurts. It will create a huge distress alert in your mind, and you cannot function as you did before because a part of you has been injured. So it's exactly the same thing when it comes to a community of believers. You cannot have one individual suffering while the rest are happy. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work.
Exactly. So if you have had let's say, a tick bite or a spider bite you and there's local inflammation and pain that happens, not every cell becomes a rebellious cancer cell. Sometimes it just needs time to heal. And then there are cells which have been specialized in that healing process that allow normally functioning cells that have been attacked to be then repaired, to then have to go through this process of rehabilitation so that the further infection doesn't spread. And this is also a very, very important function of the hive mind and the colony of bees, is that they take care of those sick and injured, and they lay down their lives to save the lives of their colleagues, and they don't hesitate in this matter. And when it comes to the imam of the time, they are completely self-sacrificing, and this is what ultimately leads to the survival and success of the entire colony. It's that lone sheep that is the target of the wolf, isn't it? When you are programmed by certain people who know what they're doing, want you to think that to be an individual is to be free. Actually, it's the gravest danger to your survival, that you are by yourself in a world where it's the colonies that survive and attain success. So it works both ways.
It does.
There are colonies of hornets, there are colonies of bees, and which one you choose to be a part of, you must choose one or the other, because the person who is alone is the first to be picked up and discarded. Exactly. And the chances of survival are the least. So make your choice wisely.
In the animal world, they do understand that wolves go in packs and sheep are meant to be in herds.
Yes.
And it's fascinating how Jesus Christ constantly uses that as the metaphor, as the parable.
Yeah.
The shepherd, the sheep, the lost sheep, and how the shepherd, the good shepherd, will go and look for that one lost sheep, even though he has 99 in the fold and he in the herd, in the flock, and he's happy that he's got those 99. He won't say, well, I have 99 sheep. He'll say, no, where's that one lost sheep? Because by itself, it's going to get hurt.
Absolutely.
It's not going to be okay. And he goes and he'll look for that sheep and he'll bring it back and he'll be rejoicing and telling his neighbors, rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. Why? Because that one lost sheep will not survive.
Exactly.
And a believer is a sheep of the shepherd. So you have to be in the flock. You have to be a part of that flock. And I don't think sheep want to be away from their flock. I think they are meant to be together, right?
Yeah.
They
and
enjoy that better.
This is a great educational activity to do with your children. I mean, for example, I like to sit with my children every now and then when we get the time, and I like to see these documentaries on the savannah where these lions are plotting to take down a wildebeest or one of the larger animals on the savannah. And you'll notice that when they get together, the lions dare not attack. There is a shield that is made, a wall of flesh that comes in the way, and they're all directed horns at the lions. And the lions, even though their whole scheme is to get them to separate, to break them down. And the mentality of the survivors among the flock is to hold together as one unit. And you ask your child, well, what led to the survival of these particular animals that were being preyed upon? And they'll always tell you they stuck together. And this is a lesson that we all intuitively know to be true, but when you can demonstrate it through examples in the animal kingdom over and over again, eventually you reach a point where you recognize that, yes, I must be part of a greater whole if I am to survive and thrive as an individual.
Exactly. He continues the episode. I think we do have some parts of it left. Let's go on to the next one.
And I think that if we take what takes, this that takes place in cells and that which takes place in the ant community or the bee community, and we parallel it in the Islamic Ummah, we also find that there is this real necessity and wisdom behind the fact that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not leave the nation or the Ummah without its proper glue that would hold it together, because he said that that an imam was made obligatory to follow by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a safeguard against the separation of the ummah, that the ummah might not differ. It's a protection against the ummah differing and then fighting against one another or acting independently. And so we find that the likeness of these independent cells that behave in an abnormal way is the likeness of those non-working scholars that don't have an imam for their own selves, and yet they issue religious decrees and orders and confuse the rest of the cells by making them take on various duties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not command with. And so they are a real cancer on this ummah or on this nation, and they must be eliminated from the body, or else they would kill the entire organism. We also see that the imam behaves as that glue. We see also that the mission of the imam, the mission of Islam, and the mission of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was actually to help human beings take that next evolutionary step. Biologists, they said that the first step is a single-celled organism. Then it becomes a multi-celled organism, right? Then the next step after that is that these multi-celled organisms start cooperating together in what is called a superorganism, which is like a beehive or an ant colony. And then the next step after that would be a superorganism. And that superorganism is when you have a collection of beehives that are independent of one another, but they're all cooperating amongst one another. And that is what we saw happen with the Ummah. And that's what we saw happen in Christianity, in early Christianity. And that's what we saw happen in many other of the divine religions. We saw that the apostles, in the case of Christianity, they all went out amongst the nations. One went to India, one went to Turkey, one went to Rome, one went here, one went there. And they formed these independent hives, or these independent Christian colonies, you know? But all of these Christian colonies began to cooperate with one another until they formed the basis for the Holy Roman Empire, or this great Christian civilization that was born after that. Now, whether or not they were following a correct imam or not after so much time, that's a different conversation. But the notion or the idea is there. The same thing happens in Islam. Many Islamic communities start forming amongst these different countries and these different peoples, and then they all start cooperating with one another, and they decide to join one another in this grand caliphate, or this grand nation or ummah that's behaving as now a super organism. Civilizations and peoples that are choosing to cooperate with one another, and they're being held together by the Prophet Muhammad or by the Imam of the time. And that's the mission of the Mahdi, right? And that's what the narrations have stated, is that the Mahdi seeks to do what is the step after that.
My goodness, what a concept.
Yeah, now we jump to the human organism, which is, of course, a collection of many different organelles that are subcellular, that become one cell that serves a particular function on where that cell is. And then you have the cells that get together again to make tissues, like the muscle. And then you have the cells that combine with bones to allow movement. And you have organ systems like the liver that detoxify the body, stomach that helps us to absorb nutrients from our food, the brain that helps us to navigate through this reality that we live in, this five-sense reality, and then the whole of these organ systems get together to make a human being that serves as an avatar to live a life on this planet, serve as a vessel for the spirit or the soul in order to progress and evolve spiritually. And this is something that Abu Sadiq, I think, puts forward in a very amazing and fascinating way that only he can, and then saying that actually if all the organisms or all the human beings on a planet, along with all the animals, they form these bonds, this connection with one another, they can make the superorganism, which is that entire planet that serves one function, which is to serve one another and to create the Eden on earth that we want to return back to. And this is where every single prophet and messenger that is mentioned in our holy books, this is what they were trying to achieve. They were trying to make us look beyond our own self and our own selfish desires that are rooted in praise or aggrandizement, but take us to service of the other. When we are serving the needs of the other members of our community, we are creating this super organism where everything serves everything else, and you have peace and security and happiness and all the good things that we seek as human beings. So this is interestingly also the topic of one of the most successful movies ever made. And
you
the
were
reason
just saying that during the...
This is what I was saying. I was saying the reason for the success of this movie, and it was is Avatar, which shows what? That you can become a superorganism. So there's this planet that is one of the moons of Saturn in the future, and it has life living on it, and human beings arrive, and their job is exploitation and taking all the resources from this planet. But what they find is there's like a primitive species that live there technologically, but spiritually they're very much more advanced than human beings. They recognize that the whole planet is one organism, and they are a part of that one organism. And they end up teaching the human beings that take avatars on this planet the lessons of the superorganism, living as part of a whole. And they are all united around this one tree that they essentially worship as the tree of life that gives life to that particular planet. And of course, the human beings that come as invaders, they want to kill this tree, because they recognize that they are all united around this one tree. And that, of course, represents that queen bee idea. That if you take out the queen bee, you take out the colony.
Isn't that interesting, too? Because the tree is that we begin the goal of the wise knowing that a tree can be a person.
Exactly. That definitely, that tree was representing something, and to say it represents the imam of that particular superorganism is not going far at all. It's actually exactly what the tree was in that particular movie that they had made this. And this is why it's a success, because we as human beings know that this is our goal, to become like that, where the planet is one under God's rule. And this is the message of the riser of the family of Muhammad to all those who are interested in leaving these lives of extreme pain and suffering, where people, like we always say, they struggle to make ends meet and things are getting worse, not better. To change from this, we must change the essence of the way that we perceive the world around us, and to live as a hive, as a community or colony of bees, where the prince of the bees is the one who is running the system through the Spirit of God, is the end of suffering and the beginning of freedom. And this is a message, I think, that Abba Sadiq explained so beautifully in that episode with Sister Beda.
Yes. It really is. It's something that we really hope people can understand, because it is, as you said, it's the beginning of freedom. And that sounds probably kind of strange to anyone who might think that giving up something or being selfless or relinquishing your individuality and saying it's for the greater good. What does that really mean? Does it mean we give up our culture? Does it mean we give up our interests? Does it mean that we no longer have personalities, or that we don't get to enjoy life? Of course not. It's the actual opposite of all of those. Because a good leader, a good father, a good shepherd, a good imam is someone who allows people to prosper to the best of their ability. But we believe that you cannot find the best potential within you. You cannot reach it by yourself. You need other people. We need other people to hone us and to make us who we are. And we do it for each other. And it's an inevitable positive consequence or side effect of living together. You improve one another. You learn better skills. You find better skills within yourself that you didn't even know existed. And it is something quite phenomenal to watch. And it happens. And we're living it right now.
Yeah, and it's, watching this episode and reflecting on it, it just makes you realize that the goal of the wise is to become a living reflection of God in the creation. And this hive that Abba Sadiq's creating, it's really a school, isn't it?
It is,
for spiritual maturity, so that that worker bee can gradually work itself up into a position where one day it could be born again in that colony in a different role, and then on a different level. And it slowly works its way up until one day it is mature enough to become the queen of that particular colony. Now, Abba Sadiq has said very clearly many, many times that People think that it all ends with Jesus or the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, or indeed with the Mahdi. But he says actually there are 12,000 caliphs that are still yet to come after the 12 Mahdis, or including the 12 Mahdis, and that is a big, big number if you think about it. But what does that indicate? That indicates that we need to create an environment where people can become and reach spiritual maturity, and those that do are entrusted with the job of serving the needs of the entire nation. They become the leaders of the nation, the queen bee, ultimately and eventually when they reach that spiritual maturity. But in order to get there, they need to have these disciplines. They need to show their worth. They need to earn that rank where you can become from the reflection of God in creation. It is possible to do it. Some souls get there quicker than others, but it is a possibility for one and all. But you have to make the effort and you have to strive. And in order to strive, you need that community. You
can't get to the end of the goal without going through the steps and the protocols, right? Sure. And there is a process, and it involves other people and other beings. So yeah, how fair and just is God that He would create this for mankind, and how unfair it is on our own selves if we do not recognize how beautiful that is.
Yes, it is. And it's truly for our benefit. And what Satan has done is he's made you believe that actually this is keeping you enslaved and preventing you. And the fastest way to get there is to be like him, a rebel, somebody who goes his own way independently, thinking he can do it by himself. And look where that led to. Look at the mistake that he made, that he chose to become that rebel within that colony where he was so close to becoming the queen bee himself, becoming the imam himself.
He was so close to God.
He was. And yet he threw it all away because he decided that he could do it by himself. And this was the cardinal mistake of Satan. This is a cardinal mistake that he wishes that you also repeat, so that you fall away from the hive and its imam and go astray as he did. So do not fall into the way of Iblis, the prideful one who thought that he could do it all by himself.
Exactly. And do not also fall prey to the idea that Iblis is trying to preach and propagate in the world, which is satiating that desire, that materialistic, superficial want, that greed is who you are, because you're greater than that. People are greater than that. But they are led to believe that if they go and get what they want to get for their own materialistic desire to be quenched, whatever that might be, whether it's to be super wealthy, whether it's to have a mansion, whether it's to ignore the cries and the pleas of humankind that are oppressed, and just go and try and get for yourself whatever it is that you can get. If you live that way, there's this idea that people will be happy, and universally they are not happy doing that. There is a component of the human being, which is the ego, that does want to live that way, but it doesn't lead to ultimate happiness. Far from it. It leads to so much destruction, but somehow that way of living is termed freedom. But it's not freedom. It's actually enslavement to your own desires, to your own physical being, and it's not good. It's very difficult to live in a community if a person wants to be greedy and selfish, because that's not the way to thrive. And a worker bee is not selfish. An ant in a colony is absolutely not selfish. They're ready to do anything it takes to protect and to provide for the others. But the beauty of that is so great. It's so divine. It's such a divine way of living and thinking. And it feeds a part of you that is divine. It feeds a part of you that is from God. And it strengthens it, while it weakens the other side. That is exactly what the devil wants to strengthen within the being, which is that materialistic, superficial side that thinks that doing whatever it wants and being a rebellious teenager, essentially, as an adult, makes you free and happy. And it really doesn't.
God is free, and He loves freedom, and He wishes for you to be free. But in order to reach that freedom, you first have to be ready for it, right? If you're not ready for it, you're going to do things to your own detriment. You're going to self-harm. You're going to fall short. He knows when you're ready. This is the thing about God. He is that great teacher that is always watching, always involved, and always egging you on to complete that race, to reach the finish line. And He wants you to do that. And then you become like Him in the creation, and then you're free. But we have to go through the training. This is the thing. It takes discipline, it takes patience, and it takes, more than anything else, trusting in the process that God has appointed for you as an individual, and trusting that He knows when is the time that you are ready to graduate from this hive that He created, in which He appointed an imam from His mercy to be able to give you the time to become spiritually mature. So let us be patient and let us trust God. That's the essence of the story, isn't it? To trust in God is the epitome of faith.
That's right. I think we have one last segment of the episode. Let's go ahead and air that as well.
And the step after that would be a planetary union, all right, of cooperation, where all creatures on the planet cooperated with one another and operated as one single colony or one single hive. That is the next evolutionary step for mankind when the whole planet is united. And obviously we have many narrations that speak about how the Mahdi will come and justice and equity will fill the earth, and he'll unite the people of Judaism and Christianity and Islam, and all falsehood would be removed, etc., etc. And so, it all comes down in the end to what body do you want to be a part of, or do you want to operate independently? And I think that we've seen here in the community, and Professor Holly, when she was here, she noticed it. And I think that the believers, they all testify to this. They all say that Abu Sadiq, as independently when we were in the dunya, like religion aside, when we were in the dunya, none of us single-handedly would be able to accomplish the things that we're accomplishing collectively. But when you taught us to live together as a community and to cooperate, and each and every one of us to do a particular function or job, we found that we all thrive in all things and nobody can stand against us. Our enemies, they have a tougher time and a harder time to attack us. If we were an individual, it might have been much easier to do so, but as a collective force, it's much more difficult. Just like the single cells, they were less vulnerable to predators due to that, because there are a lot of entities that we could see. Just like there's, for a single cell, there'd be other multi-celled organisms that would act as a predator. But I think that we in human society, if you're not a part of the organism that is led by the Imam, you might risk falling to be a victim of a predatory organization or a predatory government or a predatory entity that seeks actually to consume you, to use you as energy, use you as food, to demolish you, to make you cease to exist. But as a single cell, you won't be able to do anything in terms of defending against that. So I think it's a fascinating thing, and it's a fascinating journey. And I think that the believers, they would always say, like, I wonder why more people don't decide to live in communities like the one that we've built here, because really it causes thriving. And I want to take the opportunity to just tell everybody, obviously, that's watching, that this is one of our missions that we have. We are evolving. We're in the process. This dawah, what we're showing the world, we're in the process of evolving, and we are becoming a super organism. And Ahmed al-Hassan, he said that the believers will not believe until each and every one of them treats the other as if they are Ahmed al-Hassan. And I think that's important, because it shows there that part of this mission is that the self dissolves. So there's no more Bayda, there's no more Abu Sadiq, there's no more, this person or that person. Each and every one of us in our own right is Imam al-Mahdi, is a Mahdi, is a guide, is a leader, because we are all part of that one body that is bound together by the Mahdi or the Imam of the time.
Wow. So quite interesting how we can connect all these organisms with each other, and also relate to the military, to the community, to the biologists like the ants and the bees. It's like, wow, we have it everywhere. So we just don't see it.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Bayda. It was an absolute pleasure, and we love you so much.
Thank you. I love you too.
God bless you.
als jemand, der von einer großen Struktur herausgekommen ist und das auch alles gesehen hat und nun jetzt auch in dieser Community ist, kann ich euch auch sagen, dass es wirklich viele, viele Menschen gibt draußen, die ein Herz aus Gold haben, insbesondere auch die Soldaten, von denen wir gesprochen haben. Leider hängen sie in dem falschen System. So, das heißt, die möchten eigentlich etwas Gutes bewirken, die möchten etwas Gutes tun, die möchten Menschen dienen, aber die kennen halt nicht die Alternative. Ich selber hatte das Glück, dass ich die Alternative für mich gefunden habe und kann hier nun voll ausleben, was ich dort auch gemacht habe, aber halt zu einem anderen Zweck. Und zwar dem Zweck des Göttlichen und dem Zweck des Guten. Und ich würde diese Community nie wieder gegen etwas eintauschen. Dafür bin ich sehr dankbar und sehr froh. Und ich würde jeden dazu einladen, einfach dem Ganzen eine Chance zu geben und tatsächlich auch zu prüfen für sich selber, ist es etwas für mich oder ist es nicht? Weil wir wissen, jemand, der Community dient oder die anderen Menschen dienen möchte, ist halt eine gute Zelle, eine Zelle, die gut arbeitet oder beziehungsweise Zusammenhalt fördert. Und jeder, der halt Individualismus fördert, endet irgendwann als eine Krebszelle. So, und die Entscheidung liegt bei jedem von euch.
That's a good summary of the whole thing made there by Sister Beda at the very end.
Yeah, the realization that if we are a part of a community or an organization, we are. This is the thing. You cannot be. If you are behind somebody who has a certain agenda and you support them and then they execute that agenda, then you are also a participant in that action. You are also therefore accountable. Like it or not, if you supported this individual who is a community leader or a national leader or whatever leader in that capacity and you helped them to then you did help them to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
So be very mindful who you lend your support to, who you subconsciously or unconsciously pledge your oath of allegiance to, because it has real life consequences. And I think Abu Sadiq in that episode with Sister Beda has demonstrated very clearly that you need to be mindful that if you are a member of a colony that does not represent your views, then you have to find something. Either you dissociate from them and find one that is in alignment with your views, or you go back to the scriptures, and if you are a believer in God, see the colony of God as described by God and then join this. And this is what we believe Abu Sadiq is doing. He's creating that colony of the Prince of the Believers, Imam Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salam, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, Jesus Christ, Prophet Moses, and the prophets and the messengers of God that we hold so dearly. It is their methodology to create that divine hive mind in the goal of reaching the Spirit of God in our time.
There has to be a bit of appreciation here for what Abu Sadiq is doing. It's something very unique and it's something very beautiful, and it's unheard of. What he's doing right now, it's unparalleled.
Yeah.
There are different communities in the world, of course, and different communes and different people who believe in different things, but what he's doing is making God extremely accessible to people. He's also translating who God is and what he is and what we're meant to do for him, what the relationship between God and man is meant to be. He's translated it in a very practical way, in a way that we can apply the knowledge rather than just have this idea theologically of there is a God and move on with our lives. There's something that we have to do now that we know that there is a God, and now that we know that there's a relationship that exists between that God and his creation. What is so unique about this call of the Mahdi and about the teachings of Abu Sadiq is that this is more. He is making religion about more than the basic empty shell of rituals that have become religion. And it's extremely unfortunate that people think that religion is all about which foot to enter the room with, how to brush your teeth, or what dress code you should be adhering to, or what dietary laws you should be adhering to. It's more than that, much more than that. And he's made it so clear. He's made it clear now that if you are a human being, then there are duties on your shoulders that you are accountable over. You are accountable for who you support, for who you enable. You're not just someone who wakes up in the morning and has that hamster wheel life, that 9 to 5, and then you go back home and you just do your thing. It's more than that. religion is more than you living your life normally in the normal way that you think it is, and you gave £5 today to someone who was homeless and you were a good person today. It's more than that, because you represent an entity or an organism that perhaps you didn't even realize you were a part of. And those decisions that are made by that body, they're basically being made by you. Sister Beda said something so interesting in the beginning. It might sound very graphic, but it's true. She said, I didn't want to have blood on my hands. Meaning that someone somewhere in that entity that she was a part of once does have blood on their hands. And she doesn't want to be associated to that.
No.
And she made that connection. She realized, wait a minute, I am them, because we are one. Because we're making the same, we're pledging our allegiance in some shape or form to something, to an ideal or a flag or a concept or a man, something. So Abu Sadiq is making it religion to know that and to apply that and ask yourself, 1 second, who am I? And who am I representing? And who am I enabling? Because if I don't agree with them, then my goodness, what am I doing with my life? What is the point of me? You know? If you're not even able to sincerely and happily wake up in the morning and say, I believe in such and such and I fully support it and I'm 110% in on it and this is what I'm doing, then what is that? What an unfulfilling life, and what a life not lived, really, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, we live in our world, we have bosses we have to report to, they expect us to maintain a certain level of output in order to keep our jobs, and we work to maintain this position being unconscious that we are part of an entity that doesn't represent what we feel or believe, and we feel conflicted and we feel pain and we feel that there's something wrong. And that is a signal. That is a signal to recognize that there is a change that is needed. And Sister Bayda recognized that the entity that she was affiliated with could be doing things that she utterly disapproves of. And therefore she disassociated from that entity, and she looked in her religious faith as coming from a Turkish Islamic background, and they were able to find that there is a man who is giving the same message in this day and age, where he is saying that come and join hands with the community of believers as once was created by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family, and before him in the land of Judea by Jesus Christ, and following that same model of that divine community of bees where he is the prince. And she recognized and was able to take that leap in good faith, and she landed on her feet. She landed on her feet, and she's flourishing and prospering, and she's benefiting other people, and other people are benefiting her, and this is how it's meant to be. And we're extremely proud of Bayda. Can't wait to have her on Rise Up. Yep, that's the next step. That's the next step. So I guess we can wrap it up here. Please write into our email address. You've got our email address on the website, outreach@theahmadiyareligion.com. If you're interested in talking to us and knowing more, you can find us on the outreach page on our website as well. We'd love to hear from you. Call in, write in. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about building bridges. Let's talk about being on the same page when it comes to benefiting other people. And yeah, let's just be a good human family. Let's be a good human family that's one body. Let's help one another. Let's do it. That's it. And I guess we can wrap up here. Thank you for tuning in this morning. We're going to see you, inshallah, tomorrow morning again. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.